I will go into the details of the Global Competitiveness Index. I believe it's about informing and really understanding what the index is about in order to have a very informed discussion as we move on. Here on the top you see the 12 pillars of competitiveness. You will see that there are 3 subcategories. You see the basic requirements, the efficiency enhancers, and innovation and sophistication factors. Nick has talked about it, but basically what we do is we measure competitiveness and we think of it as a very holistic measure. Again, it's about productivity. It is not cost competitiveness. And when you look at the basic requirements, what we measure in these basic requirements, what you absolutely have to have in order to be competitive, it is institutions, and here we speak obviously about public institutions, but there's also private institutions. It is the infrastructure, and here we measure transport infrastructure, but also telephony and electricity infrastructure. It is the macroeconomic environment. You need a stable macroeconomic environment for businesses to operate in, for stakeholders to take decisions for the future. And obviously a very basic requirement is to have a healthy workforce. This holds particularly true, these basic requirements, for countries that are, have a lower GDP per capita, that are still in the first basic factor-driven stage of development. These are largely sub-Saharan economies. It's also countries such as Myanmar, for instance, or Vietnam. As you move on, however, in the value chain, it will be more important to base your growth on efficiency-driven factors. These are things such as skills that we touched upon, such as higher education and training. It is also to have a very efficient goods market. And here we talk about domestic competition, but also foreign competition, where the Czech Republic does actually relatively well, but it's really domestic competition where more needs to be done. It is labor market efficiency. Very often people jump right away to the idea of flexible labor markets, which is true, but we also measure the efficient use of talent. To what extent, for example, do you involve women in the labor force? It is financial markets to allocate the resources to its most productive uses. So these are the trustworthiness of the sector, but it's also the access to different modes of finance. It is ease of access to loans. It is venture capital as well. And it is technological readiness. Technological readiness, it seems very abstract, but it's 2 things. It is, first of all, to what extent are latest technologies available in your economy? To what extent do companies absorb the latest technologies within the way they operate? And it is also the use of ICT. Finally, it's market size, where, again, compared to other countries that exceeded the EU in 2004, 2007, the Czech Republic does relatively well. As Nick touched upon, as you move on in the value chain and wages have increased, you hit at some point the ceiling, where the gains from efficiency drivers are exhausted. And you really need to look into how to move on up the value chain and to produce more higher value added goods. And this is captured in the 3rd sub-index, innovation and sophistication factors. It is business sophistication, which is the whole idea of how you manage the supply chain, but it's also innovation. In innovation, we have things such as to what extent do universities and industry collaborate, but it is also the quality of scientific research institutions. And this is the next slide. Here you see, again, this idea of GDP per capita on the x-axis. So you have countries at the lower end, such as Myanmar, Vietnam. And on the y-axis, you see the drivers of competitiveness. So you see the basic requirements, the efficiency requirements, and innovation sophistication factors. So as you move on in GDP per capita, more and more the efficiency drivers and also innovation sophistication drivers will become more important. For the Czech Republic, it means it's at the higher end. It's actually beyond above Poland in terms of GDP per capita. So for the Czech Republic, that means that we classify it as an innovation-driven economy. This means that actually we give more weight to the innovation and business sophistication factors, which is around 30% now for the Czech Republic. However, by no means it means that the other factors become less important. It will always be important to have the basic requirements in place to support innovation and business sophistication. When it comes to the data, what goes actually into the Global Competitiveness Index, it is a mix of data. It is quantitative data from institutions such as the International Monetary Fund, it is the World Bank, but also the WHO, and it is our qualitative data. So the data from our partner institutes in the Czech Republic, we have 3, the University of Economics, the Czech Management Association, and CMC, Mr. Tomas Janča, who helps us to collect the data every year. And it's really with the help of these partner institutes that we're actually able to produce the Global Competitiveness Report. Worldwide, we have around 160 partner institutes. They surveyed this year over 14,000 business executives, and this gives us produces indicators altogether of 114. This picture here will give you the rankings of the EU 28. You see at the top end, as Nick had pointed out, countries such as Finland, ranked number 4. 6 of the European economies are within the top 10 most competitive economies. Obviously here, Switzerland you won't see. And as you geographically within Europe move more from the northwest to the southeast, you will see countries at the lower end, such as Croatia at 77th or Greece at 81st. So there's 2 messages coming out from this table. First of all, we see this huge competitiveness divide within Europe, ranging from Finland to Greece. But second of all, you will see in the column next to it, you will see the changes in the ranking compared to last year. And there's one interesting observation. So you will see countries such as Portugal, which increased by 15 places, or Greece, which improved by 10 places. And here I also classify Spain. The idea here is that those countries actually embarked on the necessary reforms, particularly in the labor market, but also capital markets, to improve competitiveness. So these are Portugal and Greece. It is also Spain. It doesn't show here at the aggregate level, but when you actually deep dive into the pillar level, you will see that Spain has made a lot of progress. However, compared to that, you see countries that have talked a lot about reforms, but have not actually implemented or addressed reforms in the past. And here you see that they don't move compared to last year. So these are countries such as France and Italy. So it is not only the competitiveness divide within Europe, it is also the divide between the reformers and the non-reformers. We've heard a lot about the Czech Republic going up this year. It's very positive news. It actually reverses a 5-year downward trend to last time. And when you look at the pillar level, this graph shows you the 12 pillars. It also shows you in dark blue this year's rank compared to the light blue, which is last year's rank. And so you see that in turn, the Czech Republic improves in 7 out of 12 pillars in competitiveness. The biggest improvements here take place in the labor market, where we see that indicators such as the flexibility of wage determination or cooperation between labor and employers are assessed more favorably than last year. It is also the financial market development where we see there's easier access to loans compared to last year, and the macroeconomic environment. Now, the macroeconomic environment is largely hard data. So here you really see how the government deficit had gone down from the years before. And here we use IMF data. So this is data from 2013. So it is important that there's a little bit of a lag in terms of development. You also see in institutions, traditionally still not doing as well, but you see that there's a few positive movements towards a more favorable assessment of the indicators in institutions. What is important to point out here is that there are a few pillars where the Czech Republic has not moved, and these are infrastructure. It is also goods market efficiency, particularly for domestic competition, and technological readiness. Now, when we speak about competitiveness, it's always a relative thing, right? You always need to compare yourself actually against how the other countries are doing. So when you compare the Czech Republic with other economies that exceeded in 2004, 2007, you will see in blue here the Czech Republic. You see that it's doing better in terms of market size, so more market size, and slightly better in business sophistication, largely on par, however, with the EU 13 average. However, as I mentioned earlier, the Czech Republic is now in this innovation-driven stage of development. If you look at it and you compare it to Poland, for example, in our data, Poland is still transitioning from efficiency-driven factors of competitiveness towards an innovation-driven economy. So along with Estonia and Slovenia, the Czech Republic is the only country among the 2004 accession member states that is in this innovation-driven stage of development. And this means that you actually need to look up. So you need to look at what the other countries in the EU15 economies are doing, other countries that are in the innovation-driven stage of development, such as the United States. And here you will see, again, the Czech Republic in blue and the EU15 in gray. And there are 3 or 4 things to remark. First of all, we see that the Czech Republic is lagging in the 3 I's, as we call it. So you see innovation, institutions, and infrastructure. And you will also see at the other end, technological readiness. And when you look at the data of this year, compared to 2008, 2009, you see on the far right hand that in 2008-09 there has been a gap compared with the EU15 in terms of innovation and business sophistication factors. And you see on the far right hand that actually this gap has now widened in 2014, 2015. So there has been a steady decline in how the country performs in innovation and business sophistication factors. And this is something you see also on this graph here, where it ranked still 25th place in 2008 and is now gradually down to 36th position. When we take a quick look at a few selected indicators within that pillar, you will see that the Czech Republic overall ranks 36. If you compare that with other countries, such as South Africa, yeah, it's doing well. But if you compare it within the set of countries that are in this innovation-driven stage of development, the Czech Republic is just ranking 28th out of 35. When you look at a few selected indicators, you will see at the lower end, the higher the ranking, the worse, that there's indicators such as the collaboration between industries and universities, but also the availability of scientists and engineers. And this box here on the lower end actually shows you the movement in the rank between, again, 2008 versus this year. And at the top you see things such as the government procurement for advanced technological products, which is this idea of demand-led innovation, where the Czech Republic has dropped. And it is also coming in second, the availability of scientists and engineers. Moving on, I wanted to focus on education. I think when we think of innovation, within our index, you quickly look at the innovation and business sophistication pillars, but we have to think of innovation as this innovation ecosystem. And obviously, it is also things such as education. You have to have the right skills in the countries that matters. And when you look at higher education and training, the Czech Republic ranks 35th. Again, compared to the 144 economies doing really well, but compared to other innovation-driven economies, there's still a lot to catch up with. Again, when you look at the indicator level, to point out the 2 things at the lower end, it is really the quality of education and the quality of math and science education that is perceived worse than about 6 years ago. Now, this is indeed executive opinion survey data. I believe, however, it tells you something very important. It will tell you that the business executives within the country do not actually find the skills that they need to operate and to move towards this knowledge-driven economy. Then just to point out 2 more things. One is the labor market. The labor market, again, few selected indicators. On the positive side, you see things such as, at the very top, you see the pay and productivity. This is the question of how well aligned pay and productivity is within the country. And here we see that the Czech Republic is doing relatively well. Again, at the lower end, because we want to discuss today of what we can actually improve, it is hiring and firing practices. So again, the flexibility of the labor market. But 2 important things to point out. I said earlier, we also look at the efficient use of talent. When you look at indicators such as the capacity to retain talent or the capacity to attract talent, the Czech Republic, again, has some space to improve. And for me to point out as well is the female participation in the labor force, where within or compared to other EU 28 member states, I think there's a lot of catching up to do. So here again, you see the movement compared to 6 years ago, and following the recession, the labor market, you see how it's been going down, but this year actually it's improving for the first time in a long while. And last but not least, we want to focus on institutions. Now, I've been saying that the Czech Republic needs to focus on innovation, and it's very true. Innovation ecosystem, which is also skills, higher education. But one of the fundamental factors that you need in place is sound institutions. We actually see that those countries that are at the top of the rankings, such as Switzerland, Finland, Singapore, they're very, very strong institutions, both public and private. So here we see a few indicators. You see again in dark blue the performance of this year, again against the light blue, if you can see it, the performance of last year. So overall you see that there's a more favorable assessment of many of these indicators compared with last year. However, again, when you look at the more lower end, you will see this things such as the public trust in politicians, the burden of government regulation as well, where there's again room for improvement. And again, this graph will just show you the development from 2008, 2009 forward, and we see how it's hit the low point last year, and this year there's really this optimism you will see within the country of anticipation of further reforms. And last but not least, one thing we always do in our survey, we ask the business executives, what are the most problematic factors for you to operate and to business in a country? And here you see for the Czech Republic, there are three things. There's the inefficient government bureaucracy, there's corruption, and policy instability, which hopefully won't appear anymore next year. And last but not least, so Nick talked about this idea of smart investments, the need to invest in innovation and skills, and this holds true for the Czech Republic specifically as well. And we see that because the ranking has gone up compared to last year, so by 9 places, this is really the time to kind of seize the opportunity, seize the momentum to embark on structural reforms for the Czech Republic to go forward. Last but not least, yes, it is about innovation, and we will talk a lot about innovation today, but let's remember it's also about the skills. Competitiveness in the end it's about prosperity, it's really about the people, so it's about how you include everyone in the labor force to benefit from increased prosperity.